In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That first verse of the first chapter of the first book of the Bible presents us with a God who created us and all things. And we learn, too, from this verse and elsewhere in Scripture, throughout all of Scripture, from Genesis to Revelation, that God is transcendent and imminent. He's high above us and beyond us, high above and beyond his creatures, and yet this God is also imminent. So much different than the gods of human imagination and the gods of other religions. We're presented with a God who's both transcendent and imminent. A God who is not like the deist conception where he kind of makes the world and then steps aside and is not involved with his creation. That is not the triune God of Scripture. And I was kind of thinking about this not long ago when I picked up a book off my shelf called Finding God in the Ordinary by Pierce Taylor Hibbs. This book had sat on my shelf for a while, and I was meant to get to it, and I just never did. Other books came along that I started reading, but I'm glad that I finally picked this little book up. So let me tell you a little bit about Pierce Taylor Hibbs. He serves as the Associate Director of the Theological English Department at Westminster Theological Seminary. He's the author of The Trinity, Language, and Human Behavior, published in 2018, and The Speaking Trinity and His Worded World, 2019. He writes regularly at piercetaylorhibbs.com. So in this book, Pierce Taylor Hibbs is asking the question, can we find God in the ordinary? And so each chapter kind of is a meditation and reflection upon different ways that Pierce has seen God in the ordinary. And he talks about things like the swirling of coffee ground particles in his coffee cup. So he writes about one morning when he was looking at his coffee cup, and he was kind of mesmerized by the particles of coffee grounds in his cup. Not something we probably often think too deeply about, right? We just go about our day, drink our coffee, and we don't sit there and think about how God is pointed to by something so ordinary like that. And then he talks about the delightful giggles of children. Probably there's not a sound on planet Earth that's more delightful than hearing your kids giggling and having fun. Even in a fallen world, God gives us these gifts. And then he talks about a dog napping in the sun. And if you've ever watched a dog laying down as sunlight pours through a window or a sliding glass door, and can God be found in a moment such as this? How about the trees swaying in the wind? Have you ever watched the wind blowing the leaves or swaying trees? And did you ever think that God is present in such a moment? Well, these are the kinds of things that Pierce Taylor Hibbs talks about in his book, and there are others. I don't want to give too many of them out because I really would like for all of you to go read this book. It's good. It's only 73 pages. It's 15 chapters. And it's good. It's a devotional book, and yet it's theologically sound, and he takes you to the scriptures over and over again. But why can we find God in the ordinary? And what Pierce says here is that for the Christian, all of life is coram Deo. That's a Latin phrase. It means lived before the face of God. Coram Deo, before the face of God. And this was a phrase I first heard from R.C. Sproul. You might have heard him use this Latin phrase before. And it's just this idea that all of life, no matter what we do, is lived before the face of God. Yes, there is a special sense in which God is present when we gather with the saints on Sunday. Absolutely. That is important. God is present in a special way when we're gathered together. But that same God who we gather together to worship on Sundays is present in your day-to-day life. As you read the scriptures, as you pray, as you meditate upon the word, and even as you go about folding the laundry and doing the dishes and cooking dinner for your family, as you go to work, as you drive to work, as you drive home from work, as you go to school, as you drive home from school, as you homeschool your kids. These are the ordinary things that God, because of who he is, because he is transcendent and imminent, and because we're indwelt by the Spirit of God, we have eyes to see and ears to hear God present in everything. And it kind of reminds me of something that John Calvin said. I think it was Calvin. Anyways, it was this comment that the whole world is a theater for God's glory. So everywhere you look, no matter where you look in the world, you see the glory of God. Not just up in the stars, although the stars are a billboard for God's glory. But God's glory can be seen in everything. And so anyways, I recommend this book. It is a great little book. I'm probably going to read it again. I really enjoyed it. It's called Finding God in the Ordinary by Pierce Taylor Hibbs. Check it out.